I mean, this is something that was kind of planted as a seed last year, very early on last year, when I had an enforced rest. I was on retreat in India, and I broke my ankle the second to last day before coming home. And
every retreat leader's nightmare.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness me, can you just imagine? But hey, I really needed to rest at that time. And this is when the seed was planted, when I realized, oh my goodness me, I really need to learn for myself, first of all, what does it really mean to pause?
Retreat and Grow Rich, the podcast. I'm Darla Ledoux, best-selling author, coach, and retreat leader, and I'm on a mission to normalize transformation on the planet, one intimate retreat at a time. This show's dedicated to the coaches, consultants, healers, leaders, and light workers who are here to hold space for the truth that transforms lives and get paid for it. Expert retreat and business tips, strategies, stories, and magic. It's your weekly mini retreat delivered right to your ears. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Retreat and Grow Rich, the podcast. I'm here with the beautiful Allison Marlowe, and we are knee deep in the midst of our Transforming Out Loud series. And I know you're going to be on the edge of your seat, super excited to hear Allison's story of, I'll call it making a comeback. Although I know the energy of it is not really like, how our society views making a comeback, but really, diving into what it is to reinvent and to trust and have that faith that will happen. So first of all, I want you to know that Allison is an award-winning coach. She's a trauma awareness advocate, Yoga Nidra champion. I can't remember if I told you that I'm trained in Yoga Nidra. I did a weekend training, so not an extensive, but I did a weekend training in how to lead Yoga Nidra experiences. She is a writer, a nature lover, and she has a new project, The Art of Pause, which is due to launch later this year. And I have a feeling we're going to learn about the art of pause today. She lives on the south coast of England with her two youngest daughters. Welcome, Allison. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to start by setting a little context, and then we're going to dive right into your story in the last few years. But tell us about the art of pause and your upcoming project.
Well, yes. I mean, this is something that was kind of planted as a seed last year, very early on last year, when I had an enforced rest. I was on retreat in India, and I broke my ankle the second to last day before coming home. And
every retreat leader's nightmare.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness me, can you just imagine? But hey, I really needed to rest at that time. And this is when the seed was planted, when I realized, oh my goodness me, I really need to learn for myself, first of all, what does it really mean to pause? And how will that enable me to make this comeback stronger and to, come back as that empowered woman that I know that I really am. And I'm really feeling that once again now, but it was like I lost that power completely. So the art
when it happened, I'm curious, did you know automatically, oh, I just need to pause? Or did you have like, why did this happen? Oh my goodness, I can't sit still anymore. Or some combination.
Yeah, I mean, prior to going on the retreat, I'd had an incredibly busy year. I'd moved into a house on my own with my two youngest daughters, and we had been living in a building site, literally. Our house, well, we didn't have any floorboards. We didn't have any electricity for quite some time. We were roughing it, and we lived like that for some time. And I mean, it takes its toll, Darla. It takes its toll emotionally, physically. I was exhausted. So I took this time out in India, and evidently 10 days wasn't long enough. You know? And here's the funny thing. I bought a book about rest before I left. But whilst I was there, I was too tired to read it. Isn't that interesting? Although I was also very busy while I was there because I was, you know, having a lot of Ayurvedic treatments every day, 2 or 3 treatments every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was quite intense. And to be honest, I just didn't feel like reading. 2 days after I had my little accident, I picked up the book and I realized it was a 6-week program for rest. And 6 weeks being, you know, the optimum time for allowing a fracture to mend. So, you know, so
talk about divine timing.
Absolutely. And I'm always listening to these little tiny messages from the universe. Well, I'm getting better at it. Let's say I'm getting better at it.
Yeah. Well, I know I a few years back, I injured my shoulder, and there was, you know, the part of me that is the coach who studies all this stuff and is, you know, oh, this is a message and I'm going to get the message and it's great. And then there was the part of me that's like, I just need to get back to doing. This is horrible. When is this ever going to stop? So, you know, I really honor that you were able to see the divine timing and read the book and go, oh, okay, let me implement this.
Yeah.
And it's inspired a whole new direction for you, it sounds like.
Oh, absolutely. And you see, this is my story. This is what has been building up for quite some time. And yeah, I mean, maybe I should just dive in because...
yeah, take us back, because I know you had an extended period of kind of transforming, we'll say, right? Transforming out loud. And you had a lot of people, you know, on your side and wanting to see you better and, you know, think positive and, you know, work on your mindset and all of that. But there was something else going on for you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was running my own coaching practice. I also ran a women's network, which started off just locally, and then I grew it nationally. And it just got too much and I burnt out. I thought, just take a couple of weeks off and you'll make a comeback. You know, everything will be absolutely fine. That's all you need, just a couple of weeks downtime. Well, that couple of weeks transpired into being 6 months. I still didn't feel well enough to come back.
And what were you experiencing?
Yeah, physically, I was pretty okay physically, but I had a mental exhaustion that was going on that I just could not shift. I just wasn't able to shift it at all. And, you know, obviously looking back, I can see now that perhaps I'd been a bit of a people pleaser. I was a great supporter and champion of others in business. You know, running a women's networking group, I always wanted to support the women that were coming along.
Yes.
You know, and this is common. This is something that I'm seeing all the time in, you know, in the field that I've been working in for so long.
Yeah. Tell me, you know, just to paint a picture so people really get the scope of it. So you went from local to national, and what did that look like? What was your reach? Like, people were meeting all over, right? Under your umbrella.
Yes, absolutely. So I went from one group and then I expanded out that to 12 groups in the UK, and they were spread right through from Scotland right down to the south coast. So, you know, obviously I wasn't running those groups. I had facilitators and leaders running them, but then I was coaching and supporting those women.
Yes.
So, you know, it was quite big. And I think I realized that actually running a coaching business is one thing, running an organization is something entirely different. And don't get me wrong, I had a lot of support. You know, I had support with my young children because my children were younger at the time. I had business support. But I still wasn't managing it all. So here's the thing, you know, I couldn't understand. I just couldn't understand why I wasn't improving and why this just was prolonged, going on. And I was, my GP wasn't, my doctor wasn't very much help to me at all. He just said to, do you know, he said to me, he said, well, Allison, you're in your 40s now. I think it's just age. I wasn't having that at all. You know,
No.
40's the
Yeah.
new 20, hey?
We have several people in my community now who their whole mission is to do away with that idea that age, means we're going to slow down and have pains and all of that.
It's irrelevant. Age is irrelevant. Absolutely.
Yes.
And now, as I'm coming back with far more energy again, it's just like, of course, of course we're supposed to have this energy at this age. I mean, I'm in my early 50s now. But, I was reading a lot. I was signing up for different programs because I just had to get to the bottom of this. I knew there was something and I just couldn't understand it. And you know what it's like in our industry sometimes. You end up on people's lists and you think, well, I'm not too sure how I got here. I was invited to attend a one-day course, and it was all around trauma. And it was basically looking at a healthy nervous system. I don't know why I was sent this. I don't know how I ended up on this woman's list, but I was intrigued and I went along, and that day things started to fall into place for me. And I realized, oh my goodness me, I don't have a particularly healthy nervous system, and I have had a lot of trauma. So not to paint a picture as a victim here, but if we just go back to prior to running a very successful business, I'd had considerable loss in my life. I had only recently, in a couple of years prior to that, I'd lost both my parents. I'd also lost my very first boyfriend. He was murdered. Wow. So, that was a traumatic shock. And prior to that, I'd lost 10 babies through miscarriage and a lot of fertility problems over 10 years.
Allison.
So,
wow.
There was a lot going on. Nobody had, doctors, the medical profession, nobody had picked up on the fact that there was something going on at a somatic body level.
Yeah.
And I was investing in coaching, and my mind was really willing, but my body just wasn't. And I couldn't understand why I just couldn't make this comeback. So I was stuck really in a freeze state of fight, flight, or freeze. I was really stuck in that state, because
with the coaching you were engaging in, was it all mind? Like,
yes,
positive thoughts, and the body wasn't engaged? Absolutely.
And, this is what I now understand. It's, obviously coaching, as you know, and I know, and please, any coaches listening to this, I'm not disrespectful when I say this, but it's great if you do have a very healthy nervous system, but sometimes maybe if you have clients that are not making the progress or not reaching the goals that they're setting for themselves, it's almost like the mind's willing, but the body's holding them back.
Oh, that's so huge, Allison, to say that. And, over the years, I've been incorporating more and more of the body, like Spirit's been saying, get physical. Yes. And, we just launched our first certification of retreat leaders, where when you're on retreat, you can do a lot of physical movement and see and observe the body and all of that. And I don't think I realized how much coaching, we've been certified in all different things, but how much of it is disconnected from the body, because it's safer to stay in our mind.
Of course. And we're conditioned this way. Well, we have been conditioned this way.
Yes.
Very much so. And, society has conditioned us to be productive. So therefore, we keep going and we keep churning out new things, and we're quite driven.
Yeah.
And this is when everything started to fall into place for me. And I thought, hey, we need to stop this. We need to learn new ways. We need to bring in what we call in the somatic field a bottom-up approach. You know, so coaching is like top to bottom, but this is bottom up, coming from the body upwards. And we need both. We absolutely need both. But just like yourself, Darla, I also didn't realize, you know, how I may have been making an impact with some of my clients that also haven't been making or achieving the results that they had desired. Not always, but occasionally, you know, it would happen. And this was massive learning to me, and it's just made me realize.
So talk about, you know, the nervous system and how someone can discern if they have a healthy or unhealthy nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, it shows up in different ways for a lot of people. But one of the very best analogies that I can share with you probably is to sort of just paint a picture here. So you have two people, and perhaps they're traveling together in a car. Let's just say they're backseat passengers, both sat side by side in the car. And there's a very, very minor accident. Just maybe, you know, just sort of touch somebody else's bumper or something. Both people are absolutely fine. The next day, one of them may get out of the, get up in the morning, start their day's work, and suddenly may just feel a bit achy, maybe just feeling a bit off, can't really work out why. The other person, they just might be absolutely fine. Now, you may sort of question, well, why is that? You know, neither of them had any injuries at the time, but one person's fine, one's not quite so fine. What it really is the fact that the other person has probably had a lot more trauma earlier on than the second person, and it's impacted them. It just needed that one extra trauma, even though it was minor, just to sort of tip the nervous system over the edge. So it can show up in so many different ways, you know. So we have kind of stuck on, and it can be depression, anxiety, but it can just be feeling like we don't really want to socialize. It can be very subtle, and quite often, you know, trauma's silent. We can't see it.
Yes. Allison, what was it like for you then to discover, like, and become aware, whoa, all this trauma is stored in my body, and I've been trying to push through it mentally, right?
Yes.
Be mentally tough. What was that experience like?
Well, do you know, I actually cried with relief that I'd found something. And to me, that was just a massive release of trauma even, you know? And I cannot tell you how much lighter I felt by the end of just one day working in a group setting. And this wasn't going deep, but I knew that day that I touched on something that nobody else had ever mentioned before. And it has been the start of my journey, you know, to transforming.
Wow. I'm curious because you have such a unique perspective, having grown your coaching practice and, you know, put all these things in place that a lot of people would say is the dream. And in our industry, I don't even like to call it our industry. I'm just thinking of things I've experienced where often it's like, as a business coach, people want their clients to get results. And so it's like, yes, do this. Yes, add this. Yes, more clients. Yes, more money, more team, more. And I'm just curious your thoughts about that, you know, kind of taking a step back. How, you know, with the art of pause and all of that, like, what's the impact of that, or what do people need to consider as they're growing their business?
Well, that's a great question, which is kind of like, how long is a piece of string? Because we're also individual. But, you know, one of the things that I would say moving forward now, if I'm working with people, I really want to do like an inventory. I need have a much bigger picture of what has happened in the past. I'm really curious about the kind of personality this person has. It's not necessarily related to how healthy their nervous system is, but it can be really, really useful. I want to know if they're like an A-type person who is particularly driven. You know, are they people pleasers? Do they have great boundaries? Because, you know, these are things that were coming up for me previously. And, you know, I would be receiving coaching, and I was told maybe, come on, Alison, perhaps we just need to strengthen your boundaries a little bit more. But again, it was more than this. So I need to understand what's going on, what's happening in that body, why those boundaries aren't in place for people in the first place.
Yeah, that's such a great example. It's like great advice to have good boundaries. What did you notice? So if your nervous system isn't strong, how does that go trying to have good boundaries? What did you learn about that?
Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
But I hadn't realized, I mean, the only thing that I can say here is that I hadn't realized that it was my nervous system that was not enabling the strong boundaries. This may sound really strange, but it was almost as soon as I got that, I was able to enforce those boundaries.
Interesting. Was it energetic, do you think, that even though your mind wanted to have the boundaries, you didn't have the physical energy?
Absolutely. Definitely on an energetic level. Yes. And I'd feel very overwhelmed by things. Yeah. A lot of people just would think to, you know, and obviously it's not great to compare, but we kind of do, don't we? We do to a degree. And I would often find that I'd become very overwhelmed very easily. And this is something that now I'm able to see in other people. I'm able to pick it up very, very quickly. And I actually, you know, I'd make myself wrong for feeling overwhelmed. I'd think, gosh, there must be something wrong with me. You know, it was almost like, oh, too much happening. It was quite a frenzied energy. Yeah. And now I realize that actually is a sign and a symptom of an overloaded nervous system. So, you know, if I see this cropping up in somebody now, little red flag goes up, and it doesn't necessarily mean, it may just mean that they have too much on their plate. And their nervous system is very healthy. But it's something now that I always want to explore. Yeah. I spend more time exploring this.
Wow. So I want to introduce a conversation that comes up a lot when it comes to transforming out loud.
Yes.
So, you know, sometimes we try to hide what's going on. And even as you're sharing, I'm thinking of places. So I'll just share as an example, my business grew and grew and grew really quickly. And then it got to a place where it didn't grow. And for a while, I was like, what, you know, something's wrong with me that it stopped. Like, what is going on? And I know now that I needed to do more of my own inner work to catch up to where I had grown my business to, if that makes sense. And I was judging myself. And I want to bring this idea of shame into it and this self-judgment. So when you took a step back, I'm sure, you know, and you had people leading groups, like you said, 12 groups all over the UK. What was that like for you in terms of your thoughts about yourself and your image, or what people would think of you? Were you able to manage that, or did you have a lot of fear around that?
Oh, definitely. Not initially, but definitely I did, because it was almost like the longer the recovery was taking, the worse I began to feel about myself. And therefore I then got into a vicious cycle of re-traumatizing my own nervous system. So I was becoming more and more dysregulated. Rather than becoming healthier, I was actually becoming worse. And I kind of had two things going on. it was almost like two different parts of me. There was a part of myself that wanted to share the vulnerabilities, but there was and I did publicly. I blogged, and I would write on Facebook. I would share what was really going on. But there was also a part of me that was, can I really publish this? Can I really let people know? But the reason I did is because I believe so much that when we share our stories, we're helping other people with their heal as well.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. I really do.
What do you think was the impact of that throughout that time that you continued to share? Like, how has that helped you as you're reemerging with this new brand and message?
On a business level, I think it was probably a very wise move, because I'm still very connected.
Yeah.
And that has helped me enormously, even though I am, starting out with something completely new. Because it got to the point, my health was so bad, I had to let go of the whole organization. I had to close it. I wasn't able to, continue with it. But that was a wonderful thing. And I love to write. I find it very cathartic. I recently wrote a blog, actually, and I've been asked why am I blogging? And, I shared, I write for me because it's cathartic, but I also write for other people, because if there's just one reader that resonates and feels the same, I know it's worth it.
That's beautiful. So what are your visions for the future?
So here's something that's probably a little bit different coming back. I know very basically what my vision is. I really want to help women particularly to really slow down, to have this healthy nervous system so that they can go out there and get their gifts out into the world. However, I have a determination within me now that this is going to take its own pace. It's not about doing it as fast as I can to move on to the next project. But as long as this serves me, I'm going to be sticking with this. So, and this is something that's also slightly new for me. I had this idea last year that whilst I was resting with my broken ankle, that I want to play a little bit more with what I'm offering. And I kind of want to have some projects on the go. So things that really light me up. And this is really important, I think,
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about a healthy nervous system, it's serious stuff. So I want to have some projects on the go as well that just lighten me up. And I'm really, I'm very keen on sustainability, regeneration. So I think there just need to be a few little side projects on the go as well. So
yeah, why is that important? Like, are you seeing them as things that may or may not be related to the business, just fueling passion projects?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really what it is I've always been a little bit of a leader and a role model, my whole life. Honestly, if you look at my timeline of my life, there are so many occasions where I was the first person to, or I'm an early adopter, have been up until sort of the burnout. And I love that. And I think, Elizabeth Gilbert quoted something a few years ago that really made me stop in my tracks. And she said that, we don't really have a lot of role models that are sort of paving the way for us at the moment. And that really struck a chord. And I thinking about myself and who I am, and I do like to do things a little bit differently. I'm quite innovative. And I think, I want to show people that it doesn't just have to be one thing, that we can, not so that we're juggling, but we can, if we take our time over things and we pace ourselves, we can actually enjoy. I think enjoyment is, something that can quite easily get lost in our business.
Yeah.
Having fun and being playful around it. So, some creative things that just really light us up. Why can't we be doing that as well? And, particularly if it's making a difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember in one of my early trainings I took, they gave us an exercise of 5 lives. Like if you had 5 lifetimes to live, what would you do? What would your different careers be and all of that? And part of it was to look for the threads, what are the parts of you that are in all of those? But one of the impacts it had on me was to imagine, why couldn't you have all of those lives? Right? Like it's like life is longer than we think, really. I mean, there's a lot that can happen.
Of course. And I love that thinking, sort of out of the box. It's like, why ever not? Who says it has to be in a certain way, And, I think that's incredibly important. And when we do pause and we have more time to sort of think, what do I really want here?
Yeah.
But what we don't want is this enforced rest when we've been going so fast.
When our body says enough.
Exactly. And but what I also see is so many women, particularly because obviously that's my field, I see them, running on reserves. And that's not great. Yeah. I mean, if it was our car, if the car was on the red, the fuel indicator was showing that we're nearly empty, we'd do something about it. So why are we not treating ourselves with the same respect?
What advice would you have, since our listeners are retreat leaders? What guidance would you give to someone who, one of the magical components of retreat in general is we get out of our life. We're taking a pause from day-to-day life, just inherent in the nature of retreats. Yet I find it super interesting that you went on a 10-day retreat and your body was like, oh, no, more. We need more rest. What guidance would you give to a retreat leader to build pause in to the retreat?
I love that question. Do you know, I really think that less is more. Just giving the participants the opportunity to have that space. We're out of our usual environment, and quite often that's when we have that light bulb moment, when we're not constantly doing something all the time. And this is something that I have really come to understand about resting. Quite a lot of the time we think we're resting. So we maybe sat down reading a book, but the brain's still working. We may sit down and watch some episode of, I don't know, whatever your favorite series might be on the TV, and it's great, our body's resting, but cognitively, we're still on the go. So I think actually just creating space for nothing is a wonderful opportunity. So how can we feel that? Maybe a walk out in nature or something, but just even things that aren't programmed into the retreat. It's like, you have a couple of hours here, space. And sometimes that can be scary because we're so used to every minute of the day being filled.
Yes. I know our mutual connection did a retreat several years ago. So I was working with her on designing her retreat, and it was really important to her to build in this pause and to build in space to be. And so one of the things she did on day one, middle of the day, like lunchtime, day one, or before lunch even, she sent everybody to the spa. And it was, I can't remember if it was a mud bath or, something like that. And there was no doing involved. And, you know, I'm a big advocate of giving activities that allow us to get present to where we really are, right? To get present to truth early on in the retreat. And a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, some of the people had a reaction to that. Like, I'm here to get stuff done. You know, I can't be lounging at the spa. And there was, you know, like a visceral response to that, which then was the springboard to really looking at, well, where are you bringing that in your life?
I hear this all the time. I'm running my first event, my comeback event next week. And I know it's so exciting. It's a small, intimate gathering. It's just a one day. I am calling it a retreat, and I'm choosing that word very carefully. It's full. However, you know, the biggest excuse that people couldn't come, they're too busy. They don't have time. You know, it's just, and that excited me, because it just made me think, you know, okay, so there's more of this message that needs to go out. Yes. You know, but yes, and there will be plenty of space as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, it is interesting, you know, whatever the objection is always the breakthrough that someone needs. So, yeah. And I love that you're talking about this. I have a retreat called the Lazy Bee, which is similarly inspired around creating that space. And, you know, we teach what we need to learn. That's been a journey for me in the last year, 2 years, really specifically. And I've even talked about this, like, will you pay to do nothing? I think was a blog post I did, where, you know, having a coach that enforces me doing nothing but being present and tuning into my senses. And that's been one of the most valuable things I've ever invested in, is investing in space, because otherwise I wouldn't have taken it. And I think our society has this little struggle with, I mean, I need to buy something that's going to make me more productive, get more done, as opposed to something that's going to actually tune me back in.
Can I share a little story about that?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I mean, it's just brief, but however, in the interim period, just to sort of kind of keep my hand in, because I just love connection and being with women, I was running some women's circles. So they were just sharing circles. Very loose structure. Wasn't always sure exactly what was going to happen. I just kind of flowed with their energy. But I was basically holding space for women to turn up. And there was one particular woman. So we sat around in a circle and just did a little intro. How's, you know, just one or two words just to describe how you're feeling today. And this one particular lady said, I'm really tired. I don't know why I'm here. I'm too tired to be here. And she painted this picture of being too tired. And I just asked her, what do you need? She said to me, do you know what I'd really love to do is just sleep. So we had 2 rooms. The second room had a big, and I mean a big, comfy, soft, cushy sofa. And I said, how would you like to go into the other room? Make yourself cozy, take an hour, however long you need, wrap yourself up in some blankets and just rest. She said, can I? I said, of course you can. At the end of about an hour and a half, I went to check her. She was just coming round. She'd been to sleep. And she said to me, I'm so glad I came, because I would not have given myself permission to rest like that at home. And to me, oh my gosh, that was just so amazing. It just made me realize that how you can be paid to enable people to just rest, and how important this is. Just to, you know, hold space for people to find their truth.
Yes.
And give themselves permission to do what they need.
Amazing. Beautiful. So Allison, how can people get connected to you and your community?
Yes, well, as I said, I'm just on my way making a comeback. At the moment, I'm on Facebook. I have a lot of followers on Facebook. But you can also connect with me via my website, which is allisonmarlowe.com. I've also created a little freebie, if that would be okay, if anybody is interested in that. It's about resourcing. And this is one of the somatic tools that I use with my clients moving forward, well, now and moving forward. And I just thought it'd be really nice to make that available as well, if anybody else was, interested.
Yes, please tell us. I want it.
Well, you're more than welcome. So this is really a somatic tool, and what we're doing is when we resource ourselves, what we're doing is really we're communicating with the brain to actually say, we're safe, it's okay. You can actually switch off now, brain. you can relax. It is okay to do that. So I just created a little freebie, and it can be downloaded at allisonmarlowe.com/resourcing.
Nice. Awesome. And it's Allison with 2 L's.
Yes, it is Allison with 2 L's, and Marlowe has an E on the end.
E. Beautiful. .com/resourcing. And we'll put that link in the show notes as well, but I know many are driving, so it's helpful to have that. Allison, I am inspired by who you are. I am inspired by your willingness to pause, to not stop, to find the resource that resonated for you, to not only do that work and heal and then turn around and create this mission to create awareness for others. Our society is hard on our nervous systems, and we're not trained to grieve or to really nurture in that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for saying that, because I think, sometimes I think all of us know that we have something within us that we need to birth. And when I was at school, my school motto was nil desperandum, never give up. And that has really been a motto that I've lived by. I despite really going through quite a dark period, where physically I just wasn't able to get out there, I knew that I would be coming back.
Yeah. And if anybody out there is in that place, what message would you have for them?
Keep doing the inner work. Find what works for you. And, it may be your nervous system as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Our challenges are part of our story. They are part of our comeback. Definitely. And I so appreciate that sharing.
Thank you so much. I just feel very, very grateful for having the opportunity to share, Darla. Thank you.
Yes. And good luck with your event.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
More to come.
Yes.
Beautiful, Allison. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please share your insights. What has Allison stirred within you? We would love to hear, and we'll see you on the next episode. Hey, have you been thinking about integrating retreats into your business? Are you ready for more transformation in your world? Before you make that decision, head on over to retreatandgrowrich.com/stop and download my new free ebook, The Top 12 Reasons Not to Host Your Retreat. In this new guide, I'll be walking you through 12 things to consider before you say yes to that retreat. My intention is to save you time, energy, and money. And of course, that little bit of bruised ego when things go wrong. retreatandgrowrich.com/stop. And let's stop the madness of retreats that don't work today.